Hello, everyone watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. It's another episode of NRG Insights. This is actually the first one recorded of the year, so forgive us if we forget what we do for a living and start mumbling halfway through it. But for anyone that doesn't know, this is a podcast for the mortgage industry, whether that be from lending or broking or all the ancillary kind of products around it, just for people that can share some useful insights. Whether that be small business owners like we've got today, or some of the large lenders, or just anyone really that can add some value into the industry. So on that, I've got Ross Jones today from Home Financial and Evolve Commercial. Thanks for joining me, Ross.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, Marcus.
And no problem at all. So tell me about your kind of financial services journey and how you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's always good to reflect, but I would say that if you wanted to go right to the start, I was in the Navy. I spent my 20s in the Navy.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was like, well, I can't do this forever. Traveling around the world, it was great fun, but you get to a point where you sort of go, right, well, I probably need to go and settle myself down a little bit now. And my simple brief was, I don't want to be sort of sailing the seven seas, if you like. It was more of I should probably go and get an office job wearing a suit. So
yeah.
I went down that road of looking at sort of what I could and couldn't do, and I spoke to my mortgage broker at the time, and I said, what you do looks interesting. You're dealing with people's houses and you're dealing with people's money, and that seems pretty interesting. Like, what's it like? And to cut a long story short, he said, well, come and spend a couple of days in the office, see what you think, and then I'll sort of show you the sort of the ways of it all and stuff. And He basically gave me like a trainee position to come out of the Navy to. Told me what qualifications to go and get, and off I went. And
was that CMAP time? Yeah, you're not that old, are you? You didn't need it.
Yeah, CMAP time. Yeah, it was CMAP. Went and did CMAP. Navy helped me do that, paid for me to do that, and went and did the residential and all that sort of stuff. And it was mad because I was CMAP qualified, but had no idea about how it actually worked. And then went and sat in a business which is pretty similar to like how ours is now.
Yeah.
Owner managed, couple of brokers, couple of admin, and sat there and was quite quickly realised that hang on a minute, this is a real minefield.
Yeah.
I'm out my debt fear massively, but it gave me an opportunity to cut my teeth out of the military. So I went and worked at a corporate. Then I went and worked at a large corporate, which was a good move for me. We sort of in-house estate agency broker. That model did quite well at that, and then got promoted into a regional manager's position. So then and that was a really good move because it sort of gave me that experience of a bit of management. Leading a team.
Do you think that does help having that corporate stuff? Because think about me. I've never worked in a corporate. I've never worked in a recruitment company, and I always think if I had a little stint where I could learn how they do it, how the big boys do it, maybe it would have been advantageous later on. Do you think that has made a difference to your career and how you kind of wanted to build a business and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. Yeah, I think it gives you a good foundation, and it also, I think, especially the management side of it, it exposes you to making having difficult conversations and.
Yeah.
The natural, the interactions with the lenders as well. So, what the lenders are looking for in terms of quality and stuff, and you don't really get that exposure as an advisor, just dealing with the client. I mean, you will to a point, so I don't want to put that down. But with a layer of middle management, you'll get exposure to stuff that you possibly wouldn't ordinarily get exposure to.
And so, when did you take the jump back from going back to corporate, back to kind of small business, or back to owner?
Yeah, well, so my story is one of, I mean, it sounds negative and sounds bad, but my wife wasn't very well, so my wife got cancer.
Oh, sorry.
She got, it's actually a good story now. So in terms of, she got cancer in her eye, so it would have been 2017, and basically you get that diagnosis and stuff, and you sort of head falls off, doesn't it, naturally?
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you think, right, okay, well, I've always had this. It was in the back of my head that I was thinking, right, well, I think I might have the skill set to run a business here. I've been the broker. I've ran a team,
Do you think your military background helped as well?
Layering that in as well, like
Yeah.
in terms of things, and I think, well, I thought I might have a skill set here. My wife went through a treatment, and touch wood and everything, everything's worked out okay. She had a treatment, and everything's all been dealt with, and
Yeah.
you then sort of get spat out the other end of it and reflect a little bit and go, right, I think this is the time to maybe go and do this.
Yeah.
And that was the logic. And obviously, naturally, you have to start being the broker, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's back to basics and kitchen table type stuff.
Yeah.
And
That's a fun time though,
yeah.
right? Like nerve wracking,
Yeah.
but it's interesting at the beginning. I feel like we've got so many problems now that aren't like the fun bits. But I suppose it wasn't fun back then. I suppose it's different, isn't it? You look back fondly on stuff and actually sat around my table wondering I was going to pay stuff. It's no different. Like we still have cash flow problems and stuff now. It's just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no. I suppose the
I
problems
think it's
have changed.
important to keep that though. I think it's important to try and keep hold of that as a
Yeah,
feeling,
yeah.
as a driver, because we've gone through different phases as a business, and ultimately you can sort of reflect on what your winning formula is. And I remember like making the decision to do it and thinking to myself, well, as long as I can back myself to get clients
Yeah.
and to look after those clients properly, well, I'm really fundamentally always going to have a business.
Yeah.
So what's the risk?
Yeah. Do you know, I had the same conversation with someone the other day saying, worst case scenario, if we cock it all up, I can still go back to work on Monday again and make some more money. We can always, although it is a risk setting up your own business and that kind of thing, it's calculated, right? You can understand how, like you just said then, you understand the fundamentals of relationships with picking up clients and selling mortgages, everything else. The growth bit is the hard bit, right? It's the scaling bit,
Yeah.
the bit that no one really taught us. That's the tough bit.
It's the mistakes you make, and I go back to my previous point about like I thought I had the skill set, I didn't.
So what did you do then? What's the change? 'Cause I mean, obviously you learn by time and experience and that kind of thing. But is there anything specifically you think you've kind of changed to better that side? Because you'll always be allowed to sell a mortgage, right? But it's the business side that is the toughie.
Yeah. You know what? It's very difficult to like pigeonhole it, but
Yeah.
I think if I was going to sort of give it a summary, like the willingness to go and make those mistakes and get that punch in the nose, you think, oh, you know what? I really dropped a clanger there. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
Every mistake we make is expensive and it takes time. The worst thing is it takes time, isn't it? You make a cock up in a small business and it takes 6 months to get over. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're 2 years down the line and you've made 4 mistakes. But
that,
when you win, it's great.
When like you get like I always used to like if you get like these like seasoned business owners who are like maybe 60s and or whatever, and they're like quite like beaten up and quite like negative. They sometimes appear quite negative. I get it. I get it because it's like you've had to like make those mistakes along the way, and everyone who's successful has to do it. And we've there's marketing stuff. There's there's people. There's even things like I don't know, like lender experiences. Like you know what, I'm not going to do that again because that didn't play out that well. And then it just makes you better. And I think just having that attitude of like being better, and being prepared to go and make the mistakes.
What always makes me laugh is when I speak to like broker owners, and maybe not so much on the lending side because it's a very different kettle of fish than your own lender, but it amazes me how many people go, oh, I don't understand why he wants to work for me. Why wouldn't he not set up on his own? It's like you've forgotten how fucking hard it is to do. You know what I mean? To actually set up the business and do that kind of thing, and then you get to a certain level, you're like, well, surely that guy he's doing so well. Why doesn't he do it himself? But you want to go around and go because it's hard, because not everyone's built for it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want it enough. If you don't love owning your own business, I would always recommend people not to do it. If you love mortgage advising, go be a mortgage advisor, or even if you're self-employed or whatever. But it's for people to go, oh, he should just set up his own business is so blasé, even though it's the hardest thing you can do.
I think it's from my experience. I think there's one thing starting your own business, and I mean this like with the most respect, because like you could argue profitability wise, being that one man band and doing it that way is more profitable than having a firm at a certain size, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to almost like think about what it is you want, and it's very much the difference between being that one man band at a serviced office or a kitchen table or something set up, compared to having a multi-advisor firm. Like we're not at the level that we would want to be at yet, but we are. The difference is huge, and
it's
I think
massive, isn't it? Even one or two brokers is huge. Like I don't know what you mean when you say don't want to be detrimental to them. I don't. This is going to sound bad, and I hope people take it well. I don't consider that the same as a business owner if you haven't grown your team, because that is the hard bit. Like we're all just self-employed, and I say that with love, because for 12 years I was a one-man band. I thought I was a business owner. Wasn't really. If I needed to make more money, I just worked a bit harder. Actually, we've got a team of 8, and I have to feed 8 other families. That I think that is the level you get to when people talk about the stresses of business, because otherwise you're just self-employed. You know, it's very different. But and that's not being detrimental to people. I know they're business owners because you're self-employed, but you know what I mean. It's just
it's
the things you have to think about outside of the thing that used to make you money is phenomenal. You know, there's so much more.
Yeah, and I thought about this as I was coming back to work this week. Like stepping out the door on Monday, I thought to myself, I like how our business is set up, because actually I'm going to go and catch up with that person in a minute.
Yeah. And
see how their Christmas has been. And I don't mean that in a cheesy way, but
no, it's nice.
Like if you don't have that, and I think there's a massive thing in our industry around well-being and broker welfare, because there'll be a lot of brokers that are
broken,
and it will suit them in a lot of scenarios, but isolated.
Yeah.
And it's how you develop that support without being.
Do you know, we were talking about the isolation thing earlier on. I think it's really funny. Not funny, actually. It's alarming that we are the loneliest we've ever been. The next generation are literally the loneliest. Like even to go down the morbid route of like suicide rate and that kind of thing, we're literally at the lowest we've ever been. Yet everyone is desperate to work from home and be lonely. So you're right. There's a real broken point at the moment with everyone wants to work from home because it's great, and I'm very lucky. Like I'm working from home this morning. However, I couldn't do it every day, and people can't work out why they're like mental health wise. We're really, we're breaking as a country. However, we all want to work from home because we feel like it makes more sense.
I think working from home is one thing. I think working from home is one thing, but it's how you do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, so you can lean into things like obviously like networking and getting out and about, but I think brokers rightly or wrongly they're not very good at that, like in terms of like as creating communities, because they perceive each other as competition.
Yeah. The best brokers and the best owners I know don't, and that seems like a bit like airy-fairy bullshitty, but they don't. Like even if you look at some of the best lenders I look at, and particularly the best employers, they're these really open people that are willing to help other businesses and just willing to speak to other businesses. I think it shows a certain skill set, or maybe it's like an empathy, and that they tend to be really good employers because they're happy to talk to people. They know not everyone's in competition, right? There's enough money to go around for all of us.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
But it's a weird. But you're right. And I don't think it's just broken. I think it's maybe salespeople. We're a bit like, that's my business, none of your business. You know what I mean? It's strange. I do think that's changing. Hopefully. We're slowly coming out of that, and brokers are starting to speak to each other a bit more. But yeah, we've always been like that, haven't we? We've always been quite insular.
Yeah. Like I say, I just feel that like I've been there, I've done that. I'm the one-man band at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And like I say, it can be isolating, and like we just try and I think our business has sort of evolved, pardon the pun, into that
evolve commercial.
into evolve commercial. That's sort of like the logic behind the name, in terms of like we will give our brokers like the best of both, where we've got that like sense of community and support.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about that actually, Ross. How did that come about? Because obviously, Home Financial was all resi, wasn't it? And then you built the Evolve arm over the last couple of years. Was that? I can't even think of any words. We've just come back to work, and was that organic? That's the word I was looking for. Or was it always set? Did you always think like that's the next stage of the business?
I think it was probably a little bit organic actually. I think what we have done over time is we've sort of developed. We've developed a little bit of a niche, I suppose, but we're still working on. I think you're always working on your marketing messages, but I think we were just dealing with. We had good relationships with business owners and increasingly sports people.
Yeah.
So we were sort of developing this niche. So if we were going to sort of
sport thing. Sorry to interrupt. The sports thing was always part of your plan, wasn't it? That generally, even from your resi stuff, that started off as you had like a decent.
Yeah, so I suppose it's like doing what you enjoy. So we how that all started off was COVID, where I was actively sort of thinking, right, how can we engage with our local community?
Yeah.
And then you start thinking, well, okay, well the local sports teams will bring, like, so for example, our local football team, Warrington Town.
Yeah.
During COVID, they were like, they live off their gate receipts largely.
Yeah.
And their small business support and whatever. So we were like, well, okay, maybe there's something we can do we can lean into that can maybe we can support a community effort, but actually also help raise our profile. So we did that, and then I sort of like kicked on to our clients have like kiddies in football teams and stuff, and then you start becoming the person that people ask for.
Can't sponsor every team.
Yeah, so can't sponsor everything, but people might say I do. But
I know it's very difficult to judge the ROI, and I know we sponsor kids teams because they're generally our kids are in it. Do you see a return on investment on like the sponsoring of the small teams and maybe no one's going to watch or do you know what I mean? I know it's a marketing idea because it's about the community and it's made you bigger in the community. But do you see it, or is it more of a?
I think I've been on a real journey with that in terms of, I think with any sponsorship, I think it's how you lean into it as opposed to just doing it. So we can. So behind me there is we've sponsored the Welsh Rugby League under 16s.
Got you.
So that was like a thing. So I can just do that.
Have you got a connection to that?
Yeah, so we had in the Evolve brand, we had a rugby league player that joined us, Gil Dudson. He was playing for Warrington Wolves at the time. Joined us as a commercial broker. He had a bit of a background in mortgages and protection.
Half my commercial brokers in town are just ex-rugby players.
Really? Yeah,
You've got that connection, right? And rugby clubs are generally quite affluent, so I think it's a good place to start.
Yeah, so obviously Gil joined us, and Gil's Welsh, and so there was a natural like connection there, and I suppose the reason why I mentioned it is that we can sponsor the shirt, and that's all fine. But if you just sponsor the shirt and then expect the phone to ring, it's not going to happen. So it's how you engage it. It's just another network really. Yeah. So I think to answer your question, do we get a return on investment? But it's what you do with it. Like, so for example,
that makes sense.
A kids football team,
a billboard at a club with a phone number on it, right? You've actually got to go and mix with people.
Yeah, so we made a point of like hosting people at Warrington Town, like really regularly. So we would take people to the game, introducers, clients, and it just became part of our, thing. And I think, like I said, it's what you do with it as opposed to just doing it is probably the thing. Did you
go and see Warrington Wolves last year? The only reason I say it is because I watched one rugby league game last year at Wembley, and that was Wolves versus Wigan.
Oh, you went to obviously saw Wigan lift the trophy then, obviously.
Yes. We're fake Wigan fans down here, see, because we had to pick a rugby league team because we haven't got one. So me and my union mates all watch Wigan.
I'll be careful what I say because I've got some good friends at Wigan. But I've also got some good friends at
We just don't have the rivalry. I was sat with all these Wigan lads and they're chatting away, and I'm like, just clearly tell by my accent we're not from the same place.
No, to be fair, I've taken an awful lot from Wigan, and I suppose you asked me about how the commercial business literally has evolved.
As you can tell, my questions go off on a tangent. You'll have to remember what I said 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, but it's relevant though. So for example, like if we sort of try and have the same sort of culture, if you like, and do the same sort of things as like maybe a high performing sports team would do.
Yep.
And with the Evolve business, it was really quite interesting because it enabled us to do stuff that we couldn't do in the residential thing. So that fundamentally, that was like the logic behind it. Yeah. But when we think about sports people, I sort of thought to myself, hang on a minute, there's a load of value here that we could potentially add, because if you're a rugby league player, for example, if you're playing in that Challenge Cup final, for Wigan or Warrington, and you're 30 years old, and there's a bonus there that you either, if you win the cup or whatever, you get a bonus. What's happening with that bonus? And then if you think about the mortgage lender's perspective on that lad or lass, because the women's final was played at Wembley as well, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So if you're that sports person, then go for a mortgage, and let's say it's your first property, using that bonus to get you on the property ladder. Your contract is usually anywhere between 12 to 2 years, 12 months to 2 years.
Are they considered like contractors when you're doing them?
No, but it'd be more like a fixed term contract.
Right.
So, but the lender, because as soon as you put a professional sports person, will start to think, well, okay, how sustainable is this income?
Yeah.
How that level of income, is it going to be sustainable at the end of that contract when that person that is now 32, and then maybe thinking about, well, actually, what does life look like after sport? So we sort of came up with this three layered position with like laying the foundation of like, right, a rugby player or a football player should own their own property when they retire.
Yeah.
And
they haven't got much after that unless they're lucky enough to go into something else.
Yeah, and then the next layer is, well, what are you doing whilst you're competing?
Yeah.
And potentially getting that access to bonus that's developing skill set, that's potentially developing income streams. And that's where the evolve side comes in, because things like, doing a commercial conversion or refurbing a property or something like that.
And so do you go in and educate these guys then? Because obviously they don't know, they've got spare cash, right? But that was always the issue with sports people in the past, wasn't it? That they were bankrupt at 40. So do you think it's an education piece where we're trying to explain to them how because sport doesn't last forever?
It's a difficult one, I think. I think we...
because also a lot of these guys are like 25 years old. So when I was 25, I was getting paid well. I didn't really give a shit what I was doing when I was 30. It's just difficult to go, yeah. I'm older than you, you need to think about your money.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's... I think it depends on the sport. So, for example, football, if we use football as an example, you'll get young players who are sort of 17, 18-year-old that then go from being like scholarship, like apprentice type money to then getting... Now, some of them, depending on them, on their ability and their profile, will go to these massive contracts. But in the norm, they'll go from like an apprentice salary to something that is like, probably I would say like a good manager's sort of salary.
I'm only thinking about my friends' kids that have gone through, just to put rough figures on it. Like at the lower end, they're like 40, 45 grand, something like that, 40 to 60. So they're not like, even though they're playing football for a living, which is amazing, they're still on an average wage locally for where you are, aren't they? Like it's
So these young kids then get a signing on bonus for signing professional terms, which will come with the amount. We'll probably be able to put a deposit on a property.
Yeah.
So you sort of go, right, okay, is that going on a deposit for a house, or is that going on a
trip to
holiday to Vegas or Dubai or wherever?
So, I would have done when I was 18, and I tell you what, I didn't have a house.
So you've been on a bit of a journey with that, really, in terms of like developing where we add our value, and sport is one of the areas that we quite enjoy working with but I think that's like your evolution of as a business. It's like when you first start off, you'll do anyone's mortgage, and fundamentally we will. But you develop things how you want to develop them.
And your niche slowly develops over time as well, doesn't it? Just because the people that you're helping, you're really good at it, and they generally know people that are similar to them, aren't they? So that's how your kind of niche is built. Let's touch on that. Actually, you just said then about evolving the business and not. Well, I wrote down when we were talking earlier on about you don't have to grow to win, or you don't have to grow to evolve, if that makes sense, because the business doesn't have to go dramatically like, I've got 20 staff now, does it? To actually see where you are as a niche. Because when we were talking off screen, you were saying about how happy you are as a business now because you understand the losses you've made and where the best places are to win. So let's talk about that, about kind of, because people will listen to this and they'll be like, I want 10 people next year, and I always feel like I'm really, really negative because I speak to business owners all the time, small business owners, and they're like, so next year we'll get 20 people and then I want 50. I said, cool, name me a company that you want to aspire to be like that has 50 brokers, because I'll tell you now there's 8 of them. You know what I mean? It's not 100 people. But in their head, that's what success is, and you looked at it very differently about how you've kind of been more successful over the years, perhaps not growing as bit much.
Yeah. But this all goes back to the, you've got to have that experience. You've got to be prepared to sort of like wear that as a bit of a badge of honour, if you like. But yeah, so we had a situation, if we rewind sort of 2.5 years now, where we had an opportunity to take like a retail premises.
Yeah.
And we had a location in Warrington, a couple of advisors under the banner, and the idea was actually we'll open another location, and we'll have a mixture of serviced office, and we'll have another location in a shop. And from the outside looking in, you go, wow, that's 2 locations, 2 offices, brilliant. And you know what? And the plan, the business plan was there, and like it was. We had a footprint where we were going to open the other office and stuff, and one reason or another, like it just completely having that other office, it just completely sort of disconnected things. It sort of it wasn't.
It's funny because that kind of thing you can't see before you do it, right? You're not. It's not. You look at like your SWOT analysis or whatever. I don't think you look at that and go, oh, it's going to disconnect us, because it's an exciting time to have 2 places where you've got 2 lots of communities and hopefully 2 lots of business coming in. But obviously it didn't happen like that. But that's like you said, you can only learn from that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the shop was like in itself in isolation was a bad idea. Like, and it didn't work. But what it did, it just sort of fragmented us a little bit in terms of the structure of things, and obviously you got extra costs involved and stuff. And you're like looking at it, going, hang on a minute, this is like what is our winning formula? Like. So our winning formula. So then we sort of did a bit of a 360, and we were like, right, okay, well we don't need like 2 offices.
Yeah.
We need 1. Mm-hmm. So let's bring the 2 together, and then we've sort of elevated our position now. So we've sort of, I came across where we're based now, where I'm sat now. We've brought the 2 brands into one office, which is great because it was on like a business park, and all these facilities at this business park brings us. Like, we've got an on-site gym, we've got changing rooms with showers and stuff, so people can sort of like come in, go to the gym before work and bits and pieces like that. You've got great like food facilities. So then it like, and the actual environment that you're bringing clients into, like breakout areas and all these good things to sort of then go, okay, well if a customer comes in and sees us, or if somebody's looking at us to sort of join us, we go, oh, this is a cool place to be.
And that's how people feel as well, right? You've got to leave them feeling like, oh, I like that. Because selling a mortgage is selling a mortgage, but how they feel when they leave, it all contributes towards it, doesn't it? Whether that's a nice area that you can work in, etc.
Yeah, I think personally, from having the shop experience, you sort of like you get this time to reflect and go, right, what is my winning formula? But actually also designing what you want from your business.
Yeah.
So I felt like the business was running me a little bit, as opposed to me running the business, and I sort of went on this sort of journey of going, right, okay, let's just get back to when I started things of like why I did it.
What you want?
Like why are we doing this? I'm not doing it to stress myself out more. I'm doing it for X, Y, and Z, and everybody's reasons are different. And so we went on this journey of like, right, well, I want it to be based in Warrington. I want it to look like this. I want it to do that. I want the this is to to look and feel like this.
You said earlier, I think it was offline, but you were saying like you enjoy going and asking someone how their Christmas was and that kind of thing. So if you don't think about that sort of thing, I actually really enjoy that. I enjoy the interaction. It's really easy to start building a business and forgetting why you've done it, or forgetting the different purposes that you did it for.
And people do it. Like, so when we did the shop, right, we did it because we thought, oh, people will see us.
Yeah.
People will see the sign outside the shop, and it's on a bus route and all this. And don't get me wrong, people did walk in, but not like loads. It's not you're not going to buy a sausage roll. You're going for a
it's a mortgage.
It's a mortgage, right? So, but what happens is, where we're based now, because it's like a little community. You've got like an on-site coffee shop, an on-site gym.
Yeah, people know
you're
there.
What?
Right?
Yeah, the girl who does me a bacon butty on a Friday morning, she knows I'm a mortgage broker.
Yeah.
And then she tells her mate, "Oh, go and speak to Ross. He's a good lad." And
never pays for his bacon baps.
yeah. He's always here Friday morning, 9:00. So, but you build your communities around you.
You can build a community anywhere, right? It doesn't have to be in that shop front. But I do understand. I'm a bit up and down with the shop front. I know a couple of really successful shop fronts. I know a few that have done similar to you, where he thought it kind of probably bring in more leads than it did, because I think you still got to market it well, haven't you? It's just a very and like you say, it just brings in more cost as well. So it's a tricky one to make work. But again, we live in a city, so we don't have mortgage shops. It's very different. I suppose if you live in a smaller community, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, what would you suggest to people if they are where you were when you were leaving corporate and wanted to go start your own business? What do you think people need to think about? Because I always think there's a million things that they need to think about. I think people go into it for the wrong reasons. But what would be the main things to perhaps to make less mistakes, if you like, to help them?
Oh, that's a thought-provoking one, that. I gonna sound a bit cheesy, this, but I would say, like, understand really clearly why, why you're doing it, because if you're doing it for, you don't so corporate, rightly or wrongly, the reputation it gets, and when I speak to people, it's like, oh, I'm micromanaged, or I'm really accountable.
People don't know what micromanagement is. People think micromanagement is KPIs as well. Like, it's not
like sales. I've got to hit numbers. I've got to be there at 9 o'clock for this meeting.
That's not micromanagement. It drives me up the wall. People call it micromanagement. But yeah, sorry, mate.
No. But so, for example, people would say, I've got to be at the team meeting for 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and I've got Well, what do you think self-employment is like?
Yeah, you're not targets to self-employed, exactly.
The only difference is somebody's not holding you to account to that. You've got to hold yourself to account to that. So if you're going, right, I want to leave this to go self-employed, or I want to go and start my own business, it's like, well, what is the driving factor? So for example, myself, when I was doing it, my thing was, this is going to sound quite morbid, but if this escalates with my wife, I can't be this corporate regional manager because I've got these little kids to look after and stuff. So my motivation was, I'll be able to fit my clients, my role around my children, and that would enable me to do it. Yeah. So that was my why. Yeah. So I would say to anyone that's looking at doing it, if setting up and going self-employed is about getting away from certain things, just hang fire a second. You might need those things. You might need those things to be successful. Like you said, you made a really good point. Then is I don't want to be accountable to someone else. You go, what if you can't make yourself accountable, you will fail. Because if you cannot be asked to call that lead because someone's telling you to call that lead, you won't win. Yeah.
So
you've also
to move out
away from
for the sake of I don't want to be told what to do. And I think it works well the other way. If you go, I don't want to be told what to do because actually I want to do 10 calls and they make me do 5, or I want to speak to these people, they won't let me self-protection, whatever it is. That's a good reason to add value, go self-employed, but to reduce accountability. I speak to those guys all the time, because they're looking for work.
There's lots of you've got to think about what you bring into what value you're adding as well. So if you've been a mortgage broker for a long time, you've got a well-established client base and stuff. The other thing is just to think about for a second is, if you're walking away from a firm, you're not just going to, that firm's just not going to just be like, oh yeah, there you go, there's your client base.
There's the leads.
That's not going to happen.
Right, this is my contentious issue with client banks, right? No one really owns it. I don't think you cannot ethically steal someone's client base. However, in the days of mobile phones and LinkedIn and that kind of thing, if you've done a good job for someone and the company aren't quick enough to stop you from speaking to that person, it's very, very difficult to say that's mine. The corporates are quite good at it, about sending the cease and desist letters and that kind of thing, but it's only really, if you look at, say for instance, like Countrywide, it's only held up twice in court, and that is when someone actually has an audit trail of stealing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a hot potato, isn't it?
They don't come back to Countrywide, they come back to Ross. Do you know what I mean? They don't. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a bit. It's a hot potato, isn't it? I suppose but the point I'm trying to make is if you've been a broker for a period of time, or it's sort of irrelevant. It's like if you are going out on your own, your day, your week is going to look very different to what it did do before. Like, you're going to have to be out there getting the phone to ring, because you can't completely rely on the fact that those clients you helped before will just completely stay with you. I say to everyone,
we are lead generators, especially as business owners, even more so when you start taking people on. Like, and lead generation, if you look at the levels in businesses, is like the lowest end of the market. You know, that's where you start the job, and that's actually where we finish as kind of MDs. You know, I'm still a lead generator. I still got to go out every week. If I stop generating business now, the business would go under. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Of course.
people think, oh no, I just take people on and it'll be an easier ride. I really want to put that across as well. Like, if you're doing it for an easier ride, please don't bother. Do you know what I mean? It's, especially scaling a team.
But that's where a firm like ours, without giving it too much of a plug, a firm like ours,
you can plug it on there, you know.
A firm like ours, that's where we add our value in the fact that you might have somebody there that all our brokers are with us because there is that perfect blend of you're going to get support in all these areas that we've just talked about in terms of we're not a lead factory, but we'll support you with the networking journey, and we'll support you with that, and we'll go to exhibitions, and and you know, all these things that, like, well, actually I'll go and do the heavy lifting there. Actually, there's that we'll bring. So for example, this year we made a real big thing around bringing external people in to add some value. So we've got a guy coming in doing a mindset coach coming in doing a talk. We've got a lady coming in to do sort of social media top tips and bits and pieces, like, so we add that value and have the meeting to add the value as opposed to have the meeting to slog figures out.
The meeting,
So if somebody is wanting to start their own business, it's like, well, okay, well, is it better for me to do that under a brand that's going to support me in the right way as opposed to just take commission off me?
A bit of owning your business is the dick swinging bit, right? And it's having your name above the door and all that jazz. And if you really want that and that's your main ego thing, then go for it. But you're right, there's so many things you don't know when you start out, like marketing and that kind of thing, that you probably, and it's cost as well, right? You're setting up your own business. You probably haven't got 2 years worth of money in your back pocket, and you've got a marketing budget and that kind of thing, and how to generate leads. Like, some people phone us up. I mean, we're very lucky, and I'm grateful for this, by the way. It sounds like I'm ripping into these people, but we get it all the time because we are relatively well known. People want to call us for advice, but they want to set up their own business and they want to take on all these people, but they haven't thought how they're going to feed them. And you think that's the number one priority. Worry about feeding yourself first, and then you worry about the next side of things. I think a lot of people look at it as, if I take on, if I can make £1,000 off one person, then I'll take on 10 people and I'll make 10 grand, and then I won't have to make my 10 grand. And you think that is, I mean, it's deluded for one, because you've actually got 10 problems that you have to deal with. You never get to make any more money. But it goes back to what you said before about making sure you're doing it for the right reason. Because if it's to work less, or if it's to have less stress, then it's just it doesn't fit well with growing a business.
Yeah, there's some good models out there now that will actually go, because when you talk about the ego thing around having your name above the door, there's lots of good models now where they'll do sort of, I don't know how the FCA look at this now, but I think there was a bit of debate around this, but doing trading styles and things, so firms will help somebody to actury run their own run their own thing. I think we are getting a bit more progressive like that.
Just so you just don't, like, it is nice to have, like, Dave's Mortgages or whatever, but
sure.
Unless you're looking longer term, you know what I mean. It's true. I do think it's very good, and I know that because I have a business and I have a big ego, and it is. I've built it around me, which is inevitably going to be the problem. Why, if you want to sell at one point or whatever it is.
That's a really good point you make. Actually, that's a really good point, because if you think about, like, our business, like, we will naturally get to these glass ceilings of, like, well, okay, well, I've got 3 brokers under one arm, 2 brokers under another. Right, what's the next step?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to, like, invest myself to take? Yeah, can I do it? Can I do it, or do I want to? Yeah. Or do I want to align with another firm that's of similar values?
Yeah.
That actually we can go together forward.
I think that's really important to have that self-awareness as well, because I know the next level of our business, there are things in my skill set that I'm so short of that I would need to add to that, right? Because I'll just be detrimental. Yeah. And there's also, here we go, so I'll be like a therapy session about the business. But the bottleneck in our business is me. I've got 8 brilliant people who are very good, but I win the business, and I've built a business around that because I've always believed that everyone should have their own skill set. I don't think, I thought recruitment was broken when it comes to everyone doing everything. However, that leaves the fact that to get to the next level, there's a massive bottleneck, and that's me. So you've got to think again. It's that looking forward in 5 years, going, what do you want to be? So, you know, anecdotally, someone said this to me recently, and well, he's listening. It's not. I'm not going to say his name, but he said the reason I didn't want to carry on setting up my business, he goes, because you are the best in the market and you're still on the phone. And I went, oh, I feel like there's a compliment in there somewhere, but it feels like you don't want to do what I have to do.
I completely relate to that, though. I completely relate to that, and it's the challenge there is how do you, as a broker, like become non-client facing? I
honestly think from seller to manager is the toughest break you're ever going to make. And actually, I don't know if I'm really good at that either. I don't know if I do that. What I am really good at is winning business. But I don't know if I'm just sat at the. Would I get bored of like strategy and stuff? You know.
I've learnt it both ways though there, because I've had situations where, rightly or wrongly, I'm possibly the busiest broker in the business.
Yeah.
And what will happen is you'll start getting the same name on your to-do list that I need to call that person back.
Yeah.
And once you get to the next day, and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to need to ask one of my team to call them.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you'll see that name appear on a report that's been signed up and it's moving forward. And you're like, oh, did you speak to Mr. Such and such? Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's done. It's gone to offer. Now that is much better for the customer.
Yeah.
Than it is for... And the business wins, the customer wins, everybody wins.
Yeah.
But what happens is the broker, I myself, get in our own way and be like, well, that's one of my clients. Like they deal with me, they want to deal with me. But actually, like some will, some. But
I think you're in our head. You're like, oh no, Mr. So and So, he only speaks to me because we're mates, and actually, he probably doesn't care that much. You can still give him a bell, make sure everything's good and he's happy. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to do all the bells
as long
and
as you've still got the point of contact and he's like, Ross, this isn't going to plan. But that's never happened yet, touch wood. But
I think it's an evolution. 15 years that we made a placement where I'd never spoke to the client, never spoke to the candidate. It was the first ever one that I didn't have a hand in any of it. Felt weird, but then I was like, that's cool. That's the first time I felt like a business in 15 years because I'm not doing it. You know, so there is an element of that.
Yeah, that's really cool though.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it hasn't happened since, but it's a learning process, right? We're in it for the long haul, but it's really interesting as well, isn't it? But like, you've got to pull yourself away from that. You've got to pull and again, like I said before, self-awareness of being, what am I good at? What the benefits to the business am I like? There's no benefit to the business really. You doing loads of PTs, right? Because you're really good at picking up leads, for instance. But you want to serve to your clients and that kind of thing. It's just making sure that you're doing the right thing for the business rather than for your ego, I suppose.
Coming off the tools, I think that's a big one if you want to. Like that all goes back to my talk about the why before. Like some people won't want to do that.
How many people do you think you need to get? Because I think if you look at all the business books of coaching and that kind of thing, 8 is that magic number of going like, I cannot physically give to the business and sales manage and do everything and generate leads and service my clients. But having said that, I know one guy actually who is a manager and he's still broke, and he's got 25 odd people and he's still broke. But he's mad. But I mean, what point does it get to it, and when do you kind of see it?
I think that's pretty individual.
Yeah.
Pretty subjective. I don't think there'll be one rule for one and one for another. But I think that you've got this natural, like, so you're better off having 2 brokers absolutely at capacity than 8 that are just of like,
I suppose it doesn't matter what they're billing and writing,
squabbling over leads and stuff like that, and you'll naturally have variants of performance. But I think that I like to at least speak to my guys at least once a week, I would say. Like some want to speak to me, some don't. But like
they want you to speak
to not be too busy that I can never get hold of Ross.
It's really difficult, isn't it? It's difficult,
and obviously
you want to be at full capacity as well, don't you? Like you want to be busy. I do think you have to find the capability of saving that time for them, because otherwise they're isolated. And the same problem as if they were working on their own.
Well, look at Christmas, for example. Nobody wants a situation where the first week after Christmas, they don't get the phone call from, oh, how are you doing? You know, how are you doing? How's your Christmas? You know, what are your plans for the new year? How can I help you? What are we looking to achieve? Imagine if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because
you know what? It's funny actually. I was thinking this the other day that I may have cocked up the beginning of the year just because everyone's one-to-ones are on Monday, but we're so busy when we get back. But I haven't really gone through. I mean, obviously we're all in the same office, so we do have that privilege of we spent the Thursday and Friday basically chatting or remembering what we do for a living. You know, we were back to work we were back with a bang on Monday, but I haven't actually. I feel like I'm behind because I haven't actually sat down with everyone and like discussed the vision and everything for this year yet. But I'm probably overthinking it. But we're already like, you know, the 13th before we even sit down and go, right, what do you need out of this year? How can I help? Well, I probably should have done it right at the beginning.
In some ways, though, second week or even like first week of February might be a better way to do it, because as long as you like speaking to them, like I mean, I mean, what I would say is like that might be a better idea, because actually, it's like going to the gym, right? So if somebody's still going to the gym in the first week of February, then obviously they're probably a bit more likely to then have that as a lifestyle habit.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if like but it's
first
understanding
day
like,
Jan, everyone's good and loving it and can't wait. And
yeah, it's like the second week it just starts to tailor off, doesn't it? And but then the second week of January or the first week of February for a review of like what you want to do, you'll probably get a bit more of a genuine like what are we going to do.
I just always think every year is going to be this comeback and this rocket, and we've been really busy. Like, I'm really grateful that we've got so much business in, but I don't know. Yeah, you always feel like, have I done enough to set the tone for the year? But actually, it's a week, right? And also, we're all senior people here. We're not like, there's no kids that we need to G up. Everyone wants to get in and earn money, so
there's ways you can do it, though, isn't there? Like, it doesn't have to be a formalised meeting, does it? There's ways you can do it.
Yeah. Interesting. So what? Sorry, I just looked at the time again. We're on 46, and I said it'd be half an hour.
Yeah.
I do that on every single podcast, I think, because I just forget to start chatting. So what kind of? Talk to me about that. Are you all right? Have you got time to
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because you mentioned about mindset coach and that kind of thing, and I love that. I love that side of things. I believe it changed my life when I started looking into that sort of business. You know, about like manifesting and just having that positive mindset. How important has that been for you? And I mean, it's a close question because clearly you're getting someone into it. But talk to me about that side of things and why that's important to you.
I just think that, I mean, it's going to sound a little bit. I don't want to sound like a bit woo-woo.
It won't be, by the way, because I
always
used to piss out people 4 or 5 years ago before I got this woo-woo coach, and now I'm like I'm the cheesiest quoter in the world. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt that the books that I would read and the things that I would watch and engage with, if we go back, even back to my Navy days, I used to have the piss taken out of me for reading like books and stuff of like that were based around like how to start a business and bits and pieces like that. So I've always been of a mindset of like growth and like I'm being better. And then when I took that into the mortgage world, you know, I'd have that approach of like, right, what I'd be quite goal driven and I would respond well to targets and things like that. So, and the very nature of our job, we need to be really resilient. Like the lender asking for another pay slip or a case getting declined and all this sort of stuff.
Fallouts, chain breaks. Won't go through down valves.
Yeah, you've just got to have that ability to be robust, and I think that starts with the mind. And so, being positive towards things. So then I'm thinking, right, people, I will be sick of me. I'm sick of hearing my voice say these things and try and, you know, so if you look at, like, go back to the sport thing before, elite sports teams will bring people from outside to develop their teams. So I'm like, well, why on earth would we not do that? But as long as it's within our budget and all that sort of stuff, we're not going to go bring it in. I don't think we could afford like Chris Hoy or something like that. But bringing people in to say, right, well, this is a way of thinking, and actually how your thinking towards things, and what is in your control you can influence. The things that aren't in your control, you can't influence that.
Yeah.
So let's think about our response to these things. So you develop these people, and they take their performance from there to, well, what sort of like retention do you think you're going to get? What sort of buy-in you're going to get?
Yeah.
You're investing in these people, investing in people. So I think that is really, it's not always been our strategy.
Yeah.
So I've not always got this right, but
Yeah.
you look at it and go, right, okay, how, these people have taken leaps of faith in me to join my business. Well, I'm gonna invest in them.
Yeah, that's nice.
You know,
I think it's the value add as well, right? Like you have to add value to your clients over selling your mortgage. What else can we do to help people? I think that's massive, because the one thing investing in your people is that's not what you're doing it, but pounds and pence wise, it does benefit you in the future as well. So everyone wins.
Yeah.
The more you invest in your people, the more of it, the better they get, the better client journey or whatever it is, better mindset they have. Then it is beneficial to you as well. So it's the best money you can spend.
Because it'd be naive to think you're spending it on them in a way, because those people you're trusting with your clients.
Yeah.
So why would you not make those people as good as they can possibly be?
Yeah. That's a really good point. That's very interesting. Sorry. So I will finish on. If you can give one bit of advice to anyone starting out at the moment, so not starting out. Talk to me about this. If you can give any one-man band advice as to how they start scaling their business, what would it be either to look out for or to think about first? I know we've already talked about thinking about the business, so you can't have that one.
Yeah. So if you're a one person business, looking to
I'll
looking to
AI that out.
and you're looking to scale your business, for me it would be getting your. I'm going to keep it really simple. Just make more friends in lots of different ways, because this is just about baking that cake. So it's not just one thing that you'll do that will help grow your business. You're just planting seeds.
Yeah.
And it's sponsoring the sports team shirt. Yeah, that's one thing. But go and watch the game.
Yeah.
And make friends at the club. And be like, and you find a common ground, and then before you know it, you're like, are you the lad that sponsors? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then do that a lot.
Yeah.
And do that a lot, and just find those opportunities to sort of help, and then naturally things will develop from there. And when you then don't need to worry about the phone ringing, you can then start thinking about, right, okay, maybe I should look to bring an advisor in, because I know that I'll be able to back myself to be able to support them, and then I can impart my experience on them to help develop them and think organically.
That person's career, haven't you? Otherwise, you're just taking people on to try and make a few quid. It's not going to work. But if you built up that value add and you can genuinely add that to someone else's, that's a good place to start, right?
Yeah, I think it is your network will be bigger than you actually think it is.
Yeah.
So that would be my top tip. It's almost just like make more friends, but with purpose.
That make friends. Yeah, well, exactly. The more people, I learn so much of other business owners. I'm in a very, very privileged position that I get to speak to people who've grown businesses every day. So like, I couldn't be in a better position to learn about growing businesses. But if you're not, you've got to surround yourself with those people, haven't you? You've got to be amongst the crowds, as you say. And there's little tidbits you pick up off people that really.
I use a phrase that, like, just make yourself mortgage famous.
Yeah.
So everybody that I know will know that I do mortgages.
No, yeah. Well, do you know what, I speak to people about this. I think I don't know if you know Dave Baker, but he's all at Lyft. He's like a mate. He's always. He's probably one of the most consistent business writers I know for the top end of the market, and he just sells. Everyone knows what he does at his football club, at his kids' football club. In any sports things he's surrounded by, he will sell mortgages on sports day at the school. He is just, and he doesn't need to now. He's got that level of the income that he doesn't need to, but that's just the way he's built. And like you just said then, just make yourself so famous amongst people that everyone comes to you. It's a great bit of advice. Thank you, mate. I appreciate your time today. And thank you for everyone. Again, I'll have to fast forward through some of it, so I think it's just me banging on. But I appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. If anyone wants to get hold of you, Ross, what's the best way of speaking to you? Obviously, all of your socials will be on our socials, but what's the best way to speak to you if everyone wants to get hold of you?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'd probably just signpost people to, like, by all means, feel free to message me on LinkedIn, connect, and that's probably the best way. And yeah, if, like I say, I've really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed the time.
I'm glad.
Spent
It's been great to catch up.
So.
Glad I remembered how to speak, because obviously first day back after you. Glad we got there. But thank you, mate. I appreciate your time, and I'll speak to you soon.
Great stuff. Take care. Cheers.